the Lake Michigan Angler Podcast.
Push on, guys, right here.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Michael. This is Rob, and welcome to the Lake Michigan Angler Podcast. This is pretty exciting. This is a first for the store, and obviously, I think this is going to be something that a lot of our customers and folks that want to get into salmon and trout fishing on Lake Michigan, or really, for that matter, any kind of species, that's a fish that's in Lake Michigan can really get some information. Really excited about this. This is something that, Rob and I have spoken about. I'm like, Rob, we should really put a podcast together and put it out during the wintertime when things are slowing down. People are not fishing as much, but people can still use that period to educate themselves, to get information, have these conversations. I'm really excited about what we have planned. And in fact, we talked about some of the ideas here on what the goal for this podcast is. And I think our approach, for those of you, to kind of give you some insight, our approach to this is to do it like a seasonal thing. So every winter would be season 1 of the LMA podcast. And then going forward, season 2 will be next winter period, fall, winter, and all of that. So I guess, Rob, could you share an oversight of what are some of the things that we want to cover, especially for season 1, which is, I feel like this is a great opportunity to lay the foundation for, what this podcast is all about, what the goal is for us in terms of our fishing community here at the shop and just the greater community as a whole. Because honestly, even if people don't come to the shop or ever been here, whatever the case may be, we still want to provide value to people out there because we've seen so much interest in it.
Yeah, the main thing is we just want to help everybody catch fish. People are all different skill levels. Some basic, some just starting off. There's a lot of people just starting off. But even for the more advanced guys, there's always something to learn. So we're going to have various guests, different charter captains and tournament fishermen, and a little bit of everybody. I'm looking forward to learning from them all, really. Yeah,
it is a great thing for us too, because like being selfish about it, we get to pick their brains, and we're talking, the guests that we have lined up that we've reached out to and are certainly interested in participating and helping us grow this. These are folks that have been on the water for decades, seasoned, experienced, know a lot. Not only are we going to have captains, which are a core, core folks that obviously come to the shop and give us information, which then when you guys ask us or when we do our fishing reports, a lot of that's predicated off these captains that are out there every day. So obviously, big thank you to all of them that are for sharing that information. Now, we won't give you the GPS coordinates of where they're at, right? But we'll give you 100 to 120 is the hot spot today. Like, get out there and, we'll help you dial things in a lot quicker versus going out there blind. I mean, it's
a big lake.
Yeah.
And it's tough to just get started if you haven't been out in a couple weeks and you're like, hey, where do I start? You need somebody to help you get some sort of starting point.
Yeah. And so that's one of the goals. But the other aspects too, though, is we definitely going to reach out to some of these companies that we use their products, that we carry their products, to hear their stories, how they were, how they came about, why folks might want to use certain, products that they provide or have, and how they can benefit from it. And one of the things personally I'm excited about that we've talked about is we really want to tap in to and dig in and find out some of the backstories to some of these things, these techniques that we now currently use. Like, for instance, I told Rob this, like, Rob, who decided one day, like, I'm going to take this copper line and just shove it in the water and we're going to catch fish. Like, who are the folks that pioneered these techniques? Because it's so interesting to me.
Yeah, and we're really lucky that a lot of these techniques were developed right in our local area here. There's a lot of history in the northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin area with developing how we fish for salmon.
Yeah, so we definitely got to archive that. Like, that's super important personally to me, and I hope that folks will take interest in that to, hear the stories and understand when they're out there trolling a weighted line or I don't know what's some
Wire
other
dipsies.
wire dipsies. Yeah, like
Yeah.
who decided to put this thin little piece of wire that many of us, especially early on, struggle with. I mean, everyone's gone through that period when they go to set the wire dipsy and it just reels over itself and you just knot it and it's the worst thing ever. So I'm excited about us getting some of those folks in to archive and get those stories of how they developed these things and then how it spread out and became part of everyone's program now. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
All right, so that's kind of like a brief overview of what to expect with season 1. Now let's talk about episode 1 right here, right now. Rob, I think we want to start this thing off by recapping 2021 from both of our perspectives, and I think covering how it was for me, how it was for you, and then certainly because you were in contact with many people out in the water. I also want you to kind of cover and discuss how you saw it through the lens of everyone else giving you information throughout the year on how the 2021 salmon and trout season went compared to, let's say, in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, obviously we can't go back, and a lot of folks like to go back to the glory days, right?
Yeah.
We're so far removed from that. I don't even think it's fair to draw those comparisons. So I would say within a 10-year, like a decade span, I think that's more realistic and just more accurate of a comparison, I would say.
Yeah.
So for you personally, how was your 2021? How do you think it ranked in the last couple of years?
Overall, it was a pretty good year. It was up there as one of the best out of the last 5. We had cohos right off the bat. We were catching cohos in our kayaks in early April. Even before that, we were catching browns in March. But we had good coho fishing right at the beginning of April. And we were catching quick and easy limits in super shallow water, which is always fun, especially for us in the kayaks. But the boats were getting them too. And there weren't just cohos there. There were some lake trout and there were some kings around. There were some kayakers that caught kings on their crankbaits. It was easy fishing. And it never really died off for a while. Sometimes you get an early run of cohos and then they disappear and you have to wait a couple weeks for more to show up. And we had a little bit of that, but not much. It was just like a couple days and all of a sudden we were right back in action. And the boats got in the water and they were catching cohos, and it was overall good fishing. They didn't stick around in full force quite as long as we've seen it in a few years. Like sometimes we have really good coho fishing throughout July. We've seen that a couple years ago. They stuck around, but not in those big numbers. But we had kings to make up for it, and we had big kings and decent numbers of them. And it looks like we're going to have big kings again next year, so that's really cool. And towards the end of the season, we had some of the best steelhead fishing we've had in years. It's probably been 6 or 7 years since we had steelhead fishing that was anywhere near as good as what we had.
It was really, let me see. If memory serves me right around, I want to say the middle of July and then all through August.
Yeah.
That was incredible seeing, the charters, the weekend anglers getting out there popping 12 pluses, 12 plus steelhead fairly regularly.
Yeah.
And limiting out. There was quite a few boats that were just limiting out only on steelhead. I was like, wow.
Yeah, and that went into early September even.
Yes. So that was, man, it was really good. And you're right. In the spring, the coho were around and they never really left. Like you said, or maybe I would probably even expand. What I kind of saw was they were around pretty heavy, and then it seemed like some of them kind of moved away, but there were still some around. So you just didn't get that quick 1 hour limit thing. You would need grind it out maybe 3 hours and get your full limit out of a boat, or if you're in a kayak, you get yours pretty quick as well. But it was pretty good. I would say the fishing was for me pretty consistent.
Yes,
it was pretty consistent. Like from, let's see, now, me, I start fishing in about early March, maybe even late February, whether it's up here for the Browns right after ice out. But normally I'll shoot down to the Indiana waters and start fishing for coho and some Lakers out there. But when it comes to our area up here, I definitely noticed that they came up, they bypassed Chicago. I remember we had this conversation quite a few times. Like they started in Indiana, of course. Normally it's where they start down the southern portion, and then they migrate through Chicago, and then they end up coming northern to our border waters here. And I remember we were in the shop and like, man, Rob, I was out of Chicago and there were no coho there. And he's like, yeah, no, they're catching them up here already. It's like, what? Really? I was like, all right. I guess the fish are scared of the city.
Yeah, right.
I guess they're scared too. I don't blame them. I live there. But, so it was pretty consistent. I thought it was one hell of a year for just being fish around.
We always had something to catch.
Yeah.
And we never had to just resort to just catching lake trout or anything. We always had some kings around, just enough cohos around. We had some pretty good king fishing for a while. There was always something exciting to catch.
Yeah. And especially as I've come to learn how it is for folks in other parts of the lake, on the Michigan side, down in Indiana, where they can go in periods where they're like, it's either high and dry, or they're forced to only fish for one species, which that's technically going to be lake trout. And we'll save that conversation. We might actually have to dedicate an entire episode to lake trout. I think, in fact, we will dedicate an entire episode to lake trout, because I think that's going to be an interesting conversation to get various opinions and thoughts on the fish itself. But so we won't go there just yet. But as we pushed into the year and we get into the fall period, the king fishing, I think, was, for me personally, I had the best king fall run I've had, period, to date. It was absolutely crazy. And we talked about this. I think I tallied it up the other day, because I film it, I'll put YouTube videos up, so on and so forth. I'll put pictures, but not every king I caught I put up, and just because it's so much stuff. But I was over 50 kings out of the kayak just from this fall run, and I was like, wow.
Yeah,
it's insane.
If you put in your time at the right time, you could catch a bunch of fish. And it was mainly a night bite. The water stayed warm for quite a while, and trying to get those fish to bite during the day, during daylight, was a bit difficult. Not that they didn't bite at all then, but it was a little tougher. But if you fished at night, you could get some really good numbers of fish, and big fish too. I mean,
and I try to tell people, like, oh man, you're catching all these fish. What are you doing? I'm fishing in the evening.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go fishing tomorrow morning. Like, okay. I mean, you might get one, and sure, there were days where guys would like limit out in the morning, but by far, like the evening. And I think for me, how I kind of reconciled it in my brain as to why is it the night fishing better for me than the morning. I thought about it, which is the water was pretty warm, like piss warm, to be honest. It was pretty warm. They've got the sun beating down, or the rays coming through the water. Water was generally pretty clear throughout most of the fall, so they got the rays coming into them. And so they were pretty lethargic throughout the day, and that sun setting was the first chance, that light lit up on them. Even though the water was still warm, that not having that light coming down on them, they probably felt, all right, we can kind of move around now.
Yep.
And those first couple hours, an hour before sundown, going into the evening, it was every night, man. It was multiple. I limited it out twice. It was crazy. I caught my 30 pound. You caught your 30 pound. Let's talk about this story. We're in the shop, and I come in on the weekend, and Rob is like, "Oh, hey." I was like, "Oh no." I said, "You go fishing?" "Yeah." "Oh man, how'd you do?" "I caught a 30 pounder." I was like, "Oh, you caught a 30? You just made it so nonchalant. Like, you've been hunting this thing down for a lot of years."
Yep, that was my first 30. I came close.
How long you been fishing the lake now? Like, put in perspective, like how long you've been fishing for kings, looking for the 30 to get the 30 pound club?
Well, it wasn't possible to catch a 30 pound until a few years ago. So for a long time, it was just like chasing a 20, and then it was chasing a 25, and I got those. But now for the last 5-6 years, we've had legitimate shots at catching a 30. So I'd say it took me 6 years to catch a 30.
Wow.
Before that, it just wasn't possible. But now now it is, and I put in a lot of time to get that one, and it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. That was my fourth fish of the night, and when I caught it, I just left.
Listen, folks, if you don't understand, Rob, you can do the most amazing thing. You can catch, you can get 35. You can limit out on kings 30 pounds each, and Rob would still like, yeah, caught. I limited out on 30 pounders. You're just so nonchalant about it. I'm like, dude, you've been hunting this thing now for 6 years. So, I'm like, really, dude? You caught a 30? He goes, yeah. I'm like, no way. Shows me pictures. Like, yeah, I got it in the freezer. It's gonna get mounted. I was like, so when you told me that, I'm like, damn. I was like, I gotta get a 30 pounder now. I can't, because one thing about Rob will like. He's the nicest guy, but man, when you know him, he will drag you on the funny stuff if something happens to you. So I knew inside that if I didn't get a 30 this season, he was gonna be like, he was already teasing me. You were teasing me about, I got my 30, and he would make these little remarks. I'm like, all right, dude, all right. So I said to myself, like, I got to catch a 30 pounder. He's not gonna let me live it out throughout the rest of the year, and then going into next year until it happens. And I was fortunate enough that it happened, and I don't know how you stood cool, man, because when I caught mine, I freaked out.
Well, I didn't realize it was 30 pounds at first. I knew it was a pretty nice fish. I knew it was a really nice fish the whole time I was like fighting it. I knew it was probably over 25. And I got it in the net, and it made my GoPro fall in the water.
Yeah,
it was pretty tough to get it like hoisted over with the deep net
actually
into the kayak, and then I grabbed the tail on it, and I have never caught a 30, but I've held a lot of 30s that other people caught. And as soon as I grabbed the tail, the way it felt in my hand, I was like, "Oh, this one I got away."
Yeah, the kind of going back to how Rob will crack jokes on you about stuff. When he told me that he lost the GoPro, I was like, you had to pay the fine, baby. You had to pay the lake fine. Normally when you lose stuff in the water, maybe it's not that trip, but like in a future trip, I find that it's like an omen that you're going to have a really good day on the water. You make that sacrifice of a rod and reel or a GoPro, and there was the trade-off. You got your 30, but that was a $300 fish.
Yeah, probably a little more than that, actually.
$300.
But if I divide it up between all the other fish I caught that day, then it's a little cheaper.
That's a good way to kind of swallow that. I like how you did that. Just we're gonna spread the cost out amongst all the fish I caught. 2021, man, what an incredible year. Also from a store perspective, I thought it was amazing to see how many people came in that were getting into it for the first time. And I know you can speak to this a lot more because you're here almost 7 days a week. How would you say this year was in terms of new folks getting into the sport? What was your experience with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of new people getting into it. Just learning how to catch cohos and learning how to catch kings, trying to experiment with different stuff, and which is really cool to see. We have a really unique fishery out here. In some ways, it's better than what you see on the West Coast. Not in every way, but it's pretty unique, and you don't get the same experience fishing inland or fishing for other species. Like, this is a pretty unique world-class fishery. Big fish, we get numbers of fish. There's not many places that you can go out with a group of people and catch your limit of 30 salmon.
Yeah. You made a good point. We'll talk about this. My trip to the Pacific Northwest, because, oh my God, let me set this story up for you guys. And Rob, you got to tell me shut up, because people are going to be like, Michael, you talk too damn much. I want to hear from Rob. They want to hear from you, not from me. But so I was invited out to the Pacific Northwest from Old Town, and they brought a bunch of content creators together to go fish the salmon fishery, the fall run out there. And this was, when did I leave? I left the last week of August. And Rob, what did you say to me? Tell everyone what you kept on telling me
I was like, you're going to leave here right at the peak of the salmon run.
Yeah. No, not only
go
that.
Somewhere that's, isn't as good at fishing.
and yeah, so in my mind, I'm like, what do you mean? It's the Northwest. It's the rivers. It's the home of the salmon.
There's
right?
no fish out there.
Yeah, there was. Oh my God, what an experience! Like, Don't get me wrong, it was amazing, beautiful. It was really cool to kind of fish that fishery and just get on the water and how they do it. So different, the techniques, so different. So
Really effective.
no, for them it is apparently. Well, here's the funny thing, right? Guys, you have to understand how I came back with a better appreciation for our fishery here, for all the criticisms that folks give it, and you know, some levels of controversy among it. I came back with a better appreciation for it because one, when we were out there, you know, guys are like, hey, how's the fishing going? And they're like, oh, the fishing's on fire. We limited out. Well, let me put it in context. Limiting out there is one fish. Not only that, it's one rod per person. So I was out of my element, but I also went out there and I made things harder for myself. I told Rob, I was like, I'm going out there. I'm bringing the stuff that we use, our kind of program. I'm gonna apply it out there, and I want to see what happens. And it was a huge fail. It was a huge fail. I mean, I had spin doctors in water, I had flashers in the water, I had Howie flies in the water, I had cranks in the water, I had spoons in the water.
But even the people out there that were fishing their way still weren't catching fish.
Yeah.
So it's not like our stuff doesn't work. We don't know because nothing worked.
Yeah, no. My first day on the water out there, we launched. God, I'm so terrible. It wasn't Buoy 10, which is a really popular spot. It's basically like the inlet from the ocean to the Columbia. Yeah. We were further up a little bit into the Columbia, like right across from Astoria or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, we launched right off the beach, which is really cool because we launch and like that's the fishing ground. So it's like right along the bank. But when we got there and once the light came up, because we were launching in the dark, once the sun came up, I have never seen so many boats in my life. It was easily 300 boats in maybe a mile and a half stretch. And everyone was going down one way and would loop around the other way. Now, what I will say is that a credit to them is they all abide and have respect for the rules of the water. Unlike here, maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode about etiquette, where we don't always have the situation where, you know, some folks are going in the counterclockwise loop, which is, you know, the way you're gonna go, and you have there's always gonna be a couple folks that just shoot across or go the opposite direction, and you're like, what are you doing? You're messing up the rotation. But it was well, I mean, it was really interesting to see the coordination. Everyone would just go down one way, spin around, come back on the outside, and come back in line and come down. That was it. That was a loop. It was the most boringest loop ever. And you were so packed, like it was so dense. There were multiple times where rod tips from boats and kayakers would you know, pass each other, and everyone's stuff would just like flick. And you know, I mean, I thought to myself, like, if this happened back home, people are yelling, "Hey, jerk!" You know, like it would never fly here. Anyway, not to veer off topic here. Well, not really off topic, but the point is that completely different fishery, but we have it. We really have it good, man. 5 fish per person, 3 rods per person, and we're not all really clumped. Other than maybe spring and fall. Fall for sure for the kings. Spring, folks still can be spread out because you control the beach fronts. You can go in the harbors or just outside. They can be spread out a little bit, but we don't really have a combat fishery. I mean, can you think of any other time where it's hectic with boats? I mean, fall, King Run, when
that's
harbors?
about it. And that's not really, I mean, in most places, there's not a lot of combat fishing. There's a few select spots that get pretty busy.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you can still avoid people, and it's still nowhere near as many boats as what you experienced.
Oh my God. Yeah. I took pictures. It was insane. So I to end the story, I come back and I told Rob's like, hey, how'd you do? It's like, I didn't catch nothing. I felt the shame he was giving me and the way he looked at me. He was just like, I told you so. He told me so without telling me so when he gave me that look when I told him how it went. I was like, oh, all right. But I saw, I mean, listen, for those that know, the Fall Kings, that run started in the second week of August. I was catching fish. I told Rob, I found them. Like, they came in right off of Racine.
Yep, we had that cold water.
We had that
roll
cold
in.
water, and something told me, like, let me go out right now. I have a feeling. And this is something that I think all of us develop when you're on the water a long time. You see patterns and you start to put things together, and you notice these trends when you have these situations. Like, if we get that same situation again, I'm going to go out because last time I did it, something was there. Something, just that fishing intuition was like, let me go out. So I went out of Racine. I'm on 30 some feet of water, between 30 and 40, which is just off the harbor. I'm going back and forth, and boom. I mean, still silver. I mean, I had fish running 200 to 300 feet of line. I mean, these fish came in early because of that water, and it was getting that time when they were starting to get ready for it. So it made it easier for them to kind of come in. And I told Rob I found them. They're there. They're around. Like, and so word slowly got out. Boat guys weren't there yet. There was a lot of kayak guys because word got out in the kayak community, which is cool because it gives them a chance before it gets crowded. That is one spot that gets crowded in the fall for sure. But it was a good time, man. It was a good time. Now, as of this kind of podcast recording, we're now in November, and I know one of the things we want to inform people about is like, hey, there's still open water. There's still opportunities to fish and catch fish out of the lake. You know, for you, or would you let people know what they can do at this time? If they haven't put their boat away for the season, and we're talking about the small, you know, the trailer boat guys and stuff like that, or even the kayakers as well. You know, what are their opportunities now until ice up?
Well, you know, as the water keeps cooling off, we're going to see more and more fish coming shallow. It's been a little warmer than average this year, but we've had some cold nights and it is cooling quick. We should start seeing some shallow brown trout and some shallow lake trout, especially in Illinois. We'll see a lot of the lake trout in shallow. The whole coast of Wisconsin, you should be able to catch brown trout pretty soon here, if not already.
We haven't been out to test the water. I don't even know the water temp. I've been inland fishing a lot, and it's been going really well. I was just out yesterday in that water temp, and you know, I was on the chain, and it's if you're on the bigger waters, that water is 48. And if you go into like smaller areas, it's already 45, so it's chilled.
It's dropping. Now out here, I heard a couple days ago, it was still 58, and that was top to bottom out deep. So it's not too warm, but if it cools up just a little bit more, I think you're going to see some good action. And of course, it gets better and better for the brown trout as it gets colder and as we get into winter, and you can keep catching them all winter as long as you can launch the boat. Usually the best time to catch them is in the middle of winter. So there's a lot to look forward to still before we just get right into spring. We can still catch some nice fish.
Yeah, and don't forget, perch are coming in. Perch will be in soon. This is a great opportunity for folks that are you know, in the southern portions. When I say southern to us here. So, you know, talking about Chicago, Indiana waters of Lake Michigan, you're going to have perch coming in. So it's definitely a species that doesn't get talked a lot about. That obviously is highly coveted, and you know, don't forget they're out there. I know up here that it can be so.
Yeah, it's a little hit or miss up here, but when you further south in Chicago, you've got the real good perch fish.
Yeah, you had chances of jumbos. So your browns, your Lakers, your perch are primarily, I think, they're going to be the ones that they give you the best opportunities, and you can get some coho in there mixed in, of course, and all that stuff, but. And then, you know, like, and the great thing too is like all you got to go out with is a spinning rod. Honestly,
yeah, you don't need
light line, dude, with
a bucket of minnows or some little blade baits, some little soft. I mean, they eat almost anything.
Yeah,
soft plastics, cast masters.
Yeah, and I'm talking about for all three species: the browns, the Lakers, and the perch. I mean, just take a spinning rod, 15-pound Power Pro, put a leader on there, and put your bait of choice. You can use live bait, you can use blade baits. We got a couple good ones. That V Rod, I've been testing it, man. That thing, really good.
It's really nice bait. It doesn't foul up at all, which is really cool about it.
Very minimal, like compared to all the stuff I use. I don't even know what I would say the number is, but it feels really good. It vibrates really well, and I've already been catching a lot of fish on it. So I'm looking forward to using that for like perch and coho in the spring, casting for them, Lakers, vertical jig and stuff like that. So we can kind of get some of that stuff. So that's something worth checking out, folks. If you're going to be fishing this winter period, those blade baits in general are great lures.
Yeah, they catch everything.
Yeah.
There's not a fish out there that doesn't eat blade baits, and they're easy to use.
Yeah. So light line, you can fish for all these species. For as bad as the rap that Lakers get, I mean, when it's cold water and light gear, they're actually
they're
fun.
blast to catch.
Yes.
Jigging. Anytime
Yes.
you're catching them shallow,
Yes.
they're really fun to catch.
Yeah, because when they're shallow, it's cold water, and they got more life to them. Some people say they taste better. I'm trying to think when I'm trying to think all the Lakers I've ever kept, and I actually smoke them, but they weren't like out of super cold water. But some people say like they taste even better when you catch them in the cold water. I don't know.
Everything does.
Everything does. Well, I'm not mad at that. So yeah, 2021, definitely a great year for us. Looking into 2022, what are you thinking? Are we looking at this kind of being holding up and this kind of replicating itself in the next year? Is there any concerns or anything that that may or may not happen? What do you think?
No, nothing really concerns me going into next year. I'm pretty positive about it. I think we're going to see big kings again. I think we're going to see decent numbers of kings again based on the size and numbers of younger kings we caught this year. We really caught more like 3-year-old kings this year than we have in several years. So that was good to see. In the past few years, it was either you caught a little shaker or you got a 4-year-old. This year we were catching 2s and 3s, and some of those 3-year-olds were really big. I mean, we were seeing 3-year-old fish. At least they looked like 3-year-old fish that were over 20 pounds. So
wow.
Those are the monsters for next year.
Yeah, I told Robin and during the fall run, I found a lot of 1-year-olds. And they were around pretty heavily from, I would say, August all the way through. Because they weren't the what do you call them, the jacks, right? The jacks are the ones that come in that are young and they spawn early and they die. Those are those are wired wrong. Now these were definitely just 1-year-olds that were just in, and I'm like, wow, I caught quite a few of them, and so I just had to say, like, they're around. I think that's a good sign that we should see more of these fish in the next couple of years. It seems like, I don't know, man. Not that I want to necessarily get this into a whole nother conversation, but this class of fish, these 4-year-olds that we caught this year, 4 years ago, when did they stop? When did all these DNR start pulling back on the numbers of fish they dumped? Is this that class? Are these fish from that class when they started to like not put as many kings in?
No, this is after that. This is probably when they've kind of leveled off and, in fact, might have started to increase a little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't know. I mean, can we use what we saw this year in terms of the quantity and the size of the kings to say whether or not what they've done was a good or bad decision? Is that somewhere? Are we going to go into that? I mean, I think it's a great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors at play. The lake got more fertile. That helped the bottom of the food chain. The lake was at a record level high, basically, and all that water came from rivers pushing nutrients in, and that helped the alewife population quite a bit. I think it was just good timing. They decreased some of the stocking, and at the same time, we had the alewives really flourishing.
So it was almost like as they pulled back, the lake kind of naturally just stepped up and picked up on it. So that's a good point.
Yeah, I think it was no one thing that made a difference.
Yeah.
There's always more than one factor, numerous factors. There's going to be factors that we don't even know about that made a difference. So it's really hard to give credit to any one thing, but really we're in a great place right now. The lake is in good shape and it's looking good going forward. I think everything's positive with Lake Michigan at the moment.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see the growth, the community come together. And I think now's a good opportunity, Rob, to just thank everyone. Seeing everyone support the fishing reports. We went out there this year, a first for the shop, which was to put tutorials together and informational videos, mix that in with some fishing from us. We did a couple trips out there.
Mm-hmm.
Big shout out to Phil, who had us on his boat, to kind of get out there. We did some product testing videos, just showing people how we fish. We put out a lot of content throughout the year with the goal being is to help inform and educate You know, not just to shove product in people's faces. I mean, you guys know we got the stuff here if you need it. And while we will put up stuff to say, hey, you know, either we have it if you're looking for it, or this is how you use this product, because, you know, there's always someone wanting to learn how a flasher works.
Yeah.
Because you have people always coming in. So, you know, thank all of you that took the time to check out that content, supported it, shared it, liked it, found it useful, and for all the words of encouragement, because that's really why we're doing the podcast now. We had so many people just say, man, we love what you're doing. That information is very useful. It's helpful for me. And would you guys do something more? And so, you know, we are doing this. And I think for going into next year, we'll pick up with the fishing reports once the kind of season is underway. Once the cohos start popping up.
Yeah.
And you guys can expect those reports to come back weekly again to help you guys out. We'll do more tutorials. We'll get up with more captains. There's a lot of cool things that we've been thinking about, especially just thinking out of the box, you know, just all of that. And then some upgrades that are in the pipeline as well for the shop. And
yeah, we'll be unveiling some of those shortly, kind of keeping it under wraps at the moment a little bit. But yeah, keep an eye out for some things. It's going to be exciting. Yeah,
absolutely. So, well, guys, I think we accomplished our goal for episode 1, which is to kind of recap 2021, share some thoughts, some stories with you guys. I think what we'll do here is I'm putting together the rest of the episodes and scheduling all of our kind of guests and getting all that in order. But just a general overview. When I asked folks, we asked folks on our Facebook page, which you guys should be following, facebook.com/Lake Michigan Angler. We put a post up saying, hey, we're coming up with a podcast. What topics do you guys want to hear about? You know, that you would find informative. It would be very, very helpful. Unanimously, the one that was echoed by a lot of people was small boat fishing. And we're definitely going to be tackling that one. We have some folks that we want to bring on to speak about that. And so yes, we will have a small boat podcast episode dedicated, and we'll cover a variety of topics within that. Again, we're going to have, you know, some charter captains here, some folks from some various brands, from products that we carry here, so they can talk about the backstory, how it created, how they make it up, and all that stuff, and especially some of the folks that were pioneers in the fishing. We're going to track those folks down and get them in here, and really, those are going to be cool. Again, we can archive those, and people can have it like as documented and hear what happened, how it came about. So we'll get these videos out. They're going to be released weekly for the podcast, and we'll have the video version will be on our Facebook, also our YouTube.
Yeah.
Do we have that?
We will pretty shortly.
Okay, so we'll have that on Facebook. You can watch a lot from Facebook. You can watch on YouTube, and we are working on getting the audio version out on all the podcast platforms. There were some people that asked that, you know, can we make it available as an audio podcast, because they already, you know, utilize that. So it is something that we are going to look into. I think the videos will roll out first potentially, but we're putting it all together, and this is, you know, new for all of us. So we're getting it in there. So any other final thoughts, Rob?
No, I think I'm just looking forward to more podcasts and talking to everybody and getting ready for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, throw it a thumbs up, share it with someone. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next episode.